Good day, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present my research. Today, I will share with you some insights from my paper titled The Food Industry in the Republic of Moldova: Main Trends and Dynamics. My goal is to give you a clear overview of how this key industry has evolved between 2020 and 2024, using official data and highlighting both achievements and challenges. The food industry is one of the cornerstones of Moldova's manufacturing sector. It consistently represents about 34 to 38% of national processing industry output. This means it doesn't just supply food, it ensures food security, creates jobs, and generates stable revenues. Together with agriculture, food processing contributes over 18% of GDP and accounts for as much as 45% of the country's total export income. In other words, if Moldova wants to strengthen its economy and deepen trade with partners such as the European Union, the food industry is a strategic asset. For this research, I relied on official statistical data from the National Bureau of Statistics of Moldova, specifically from its StatBank platform. The approach was quantitative and descriptive, focusing on the period 2020 to 2024. I looked at key indicators: number of enterprises, employment, sales revenues, productivity, profitability, and the balance between domestic and external markets. This framework allows us to capture both the overall dynamics and the structural shifts inside the industry. The analyzed data on industrial production confirm the food industry's central role within the national manufacturing sector. Between 2020 and 2024, the value of manufactured food products rose from about 16.6 to 24.6 billion Moldovan lei. That's a 48.3% increase, slightly ahead of the overall growth of manufacturing. The food industry's share of total manufacturing stayed high, between 34 and 40%, reaching its peak in 2022. This performance shows how vital the industry remains, even in a period marked by external shocks. When we look at where these products go, we see a very strong domestic orientation. Throughout the period, the local market absorbed the majority of output, between 74% and 81%. Exports, on the other hand, were volatile. They peaked at 26.4% in 2022, but fell back to 18.6% in 2024. This indicates that while the food industry is significant, it is still heavily dependent on internal demand. Challenges like outdated equipment and insufficient quality standards limit export competitiveness and highlight the need for modernization. Between 2021 and 2024, the number of enterprises grew modestly by 2.4%, reaching 1,000 firms. Employment, however, declined by over 6%, dropping from 25,000 to 23,800 workers. This reduction may reflect migration, restructuring, or automation. Sales revenues rose strongly by 31.6%, but they peaked in 2022 and then declined, showing the industry's sensitivity to demand shifts. Labor productivity improved by 44.4%, but again with volatility. After reaching a high in 2022, it slipped in subsequent years. This suggests that efficiency gains remain fragile. The structural distribution of the main indicators across enterprise size classes in the Moldovan food industry between 2021 and 2024 suggests an increasing polarization of the sector. Large enterprises have notably strengthened their position, now comprising 33.1% of firms and generating a substantial 43.5% of total revenues. Medium enterprises have experienced a loss of ground, indicating challenges in maintaining their competitive edge within the evolving market. Interestingly, small and micro enterprises have grown their share in employment and revenues. Small firms in particular increased their sales contribution from 26.7% to nearly 30%. Profitability by size of enterprise shows a mixed picture. In 2024, just over half of enterprises were profitable, while 36% reported losses. Large firms are clearly more resilient. 90% of them were profitable. Medium-sized companies also performed well, with nearly 88% showing profits. But micro-enterprises remain the weakest link. Only 43% were profitable, while about the same share registered losses. This underlines how undercapitalization and exposure to market risks continue to threaten the smallest players in the industry. To conclude, the Moldovan food industry between 2020 and 2024 shows both resilience and vulnerability. On the positive side, it increased production value, maintained a strong share in manufacturing, and adapted to external shocks like COVID-19 and geopolitical instability. At the same time, some vulnerabilities remain. Heavy dependence on the domestic market, volatile export performance after 2022, polarization between large and small firms, with medium-sized enterprises registering a contraction in their role, a 6% decline in workforce, vulnerability of micro-enterprises, with 43.4% experiencing losses. These findings suggest that while the industry is a strategic pillar, it requires targeted policies to boost competitiveness, especially for exports and smaller firms. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to any questions or discussions that may follow.